Just bringing the black grey that I'm going to use as a kind of base coat down to a consistency I'm going to be happy with. This is basically a base coat to bring up the crane here, who I've highlighted, I've primed with a rattle can that I'm sort of experimenting with at the moment. It's a lighter shade than I would normally be comfortable painting over, so I'm using the black grey just to bring that back into a more comfortable sort of zone for me. I tend to like to paint over dark rather than the other way around. I'm just going to work on the chest here for now, so I'll bring that down. Because I want nice smooth coats here, I'm just brushing along with the bristles here in the same direction. Just accidentally loaded the brush too much there. You really don't want to get paint up past about halfway up the bristles. It can be really bad for the brush and really affect the longevity of the brush life. The trick with black is not to paint the whole surface black. You want to be painting probably a majority of the surface as not quite black, so that you still have some area to shade, because without a shade it actually just looks, well, kind of bad. You want to have that highlight and shade still, just like when you're painting any other colour on a miniature. Alright, so I've just put some black out onto my palette now. It's just the Vallejo model range black, number 169, as you can see there. I do like to replace the labels when they wear off. They do tend to be a problem with the labels wearing off and you can't see what the number is. The black here is probably less opaque than the grey before it. You can see the two colours here. There's quite a difference between them. I don't want to have the black just go over really smoothly in one coat. I want to be able to blend it in to sort of give me that transition that I'm after. I am going to need to tackle areas like in under the collar here and basically just saturate that zone as well, so having a little bit more liquid in there does help with that. And I'm basically just going to come in and feather that edge off. Now, a lot of people will tell you not to lick your brush. I'm not of that train of thought. If you can see me there, you can see that I'm taking the paint out with my mouth. Here we're just building in the shades so that we can highlight over the top and bring this model out to pop. Whenever you're painting figures like this, you've got to think about the scale. They're very small in comparison to real world, so you kind of have to build your contrast higher than if you would if you were painting something at physical, you know, 1:1 scale. Also, even if you look at someone who's wearing a black shirt or something, like a cotton top or something, you'll notice that black is actually quite contrasting anyway. You tend to find that there's a lot of popping highlights even on something that's, you know, not shiny or like a carapace armour like this guy's wearing. When I'm painting edges like this where I've got a small square, I tend to shade towards the top and then highlight the bottom, so I'm just going to leave it less dark at the bottom there. Blending everything as I go. Here I'm using the application direction to kind of blend it as I apply it a little bit as well. Doesn't matter what kind of blending technique you're using, you really need to think about moving quickly. The enemy here is the paint drying, where you can end up with edges of paint that have dried that are actually past the point where that paint wants to be opaque anyway. At that point you basically end up with a tide mark, and that's the probably one of the hardest things to get rid of. You basically have to just paint over the whole thing at that point. Probably brought that down to a shade that I like, and now I can concentrate on bringing up the first highlights. Next colour I'm going to apply is the lovely field blue. It's one of my favourite colours. I use it for white, I use it for black, I use it for blue. Basically it just applies really nicely. It's a nice shade, you can see it on the palette there. It's just useful for all sorts of things. I use it a lot with the white here. The darker shades in that are basically just field blue. Brings a little bit of colour in there, makes it a little bit more interesting than just using greys. With the black it also does the same thing. It gives you that idea that there might be a hint of sky sort of glinting off that black shiny carapace. which I just really like. So again, I'm using a not terribly thin coat here. It's not hugely, you can see it's applying on the palette here, not hugely opaque, but it's probably again about 50% applying. I'm just going to basically brush it in and feather it to where I want it to be on the armor here. Again, just using the application direction on the brush to really sort of bring it to where I want it to be, more than anything else really. These are only small areas, so I don't need to worry too much about you know, the complicated blending methods like wet blending. Surfaces like this can be interesting because you can sort of bring a vertical glint in there as well. That's really up to you, up to an artistic sort of license. Do what you think looks good. I haven't studied books for years to figure out how light glints. I just feel like it might glint off there, and that's probably a nice look, and it tends to make the miniature just look a bit more interesting than if you were just doing a kind of standard pattern to everything. So this again, just going to apply it sort of gently, carefully across the bit that's already been highlighted where I want it to be brighter. And here I'm just using the side-to-side motion of the brush so I can easily kind of feather it as I go to bring out those really nice shiny lights that you see on the armor. Once I've got the bottom highlighting done, I'll go back and apply the top areas on the armor and just apply basically a line highlight to those. Again, I can feather that really finely to make sure it doesn't have a hard line anywhere in the model. Got high contrast but no hard lines if you can get away with it. This bit here, I just want to have it so that top and bottom of that area is broader than the line going up. So to do that, I'm just sort of applying it from both directions. So as I bring the paintbrush up, it's depositing a little bit more paint there at the edge, and that's exactly what I want it to do. Here I'm just going to apply a line highlight across the edge there really carefully to make sure I'm not applying it too thickly. If I do apply it too thickly, I can always come back with black and undercut it. I just want that nice armor detail to really pop out. And you can see it's all about building that colour up with this line highlight. I don't want to just try to apply it in one go, because I'll probably make a mess of it. Alright, so here's the finished, for now at least, black blend on the armor on the chest here. You can see the high contrast really sells the black more than if it were just a flat black. Again, just to recap, the main thing we're worrying about here is paint consistency, a really nice fine brush, and that world palette lets me really control the dilution of the paint finally, and lets me really get the paint to behave how I need it to. Again, I'm not worried about getting it perfect first time every time. I'm going to be applying a couple of layers on this anyway when I'm blending it in, and that'll give you a much smoother blend than if you try to blend all in one go every time. So you notice I've also touched the upper edges of those small panels and along the larger panel just in here under the chest plate, or the collar here. The circles under that main chest plate have had their top edge there just highlighted up, as well as all the little vents under the arm there. Just that upper facing edge needs a little bit of light just to make it look like the light's glinting off that sharp surface. And painting black armor in particular like this is really about the high contrast. You want that bright gleaming light off those edges, or it just doesn't look black.